Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video, guys. So I've made my fair share of mistakes, and over time, over not 1 but 2 years now playing and uploading this game, Raid Shadow Legends, I've also noticed that I've really, I guess, disproportionately valued some things inside the game, whether they be buffs or debuffs. Like in the beginning days, I didn't value decrease attack. It's incredibly valuable, right, in terms of debuffs. So today, from my own personal experience as a veteran player, I want to share some things that took me a year plus to actually learn inside this game, the true value of certain areas, certain stats, certain whatever. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Be honest with me though, be honest. Do you undervalue any of this stuff too? Or do you disagree with me that this stuff is valuable? I want to hear from you guys as always. So, number one, I only have one kind of buff slash debuff on the list today. Well, kind of 1.5. We'll get to that in a moment. And it is block buffs. The block buffs debuff it's gotta be one of my favorites in the game, and not many champions have it. I'm gonna show you some of my favorites in just a moment here, but I definitely keep an eye out for the block buffs debuff, because it used to be just faction wars primarily that we're using it for, you know, in the arena, I guess, here and there. But for faction wars, you know, you had to deal with the pesky Valkyries and man-eaters, whatever. But then with Doom Tower, it seems like every single floor is just chock full of, you know, everybody from Sir Nicholas to Siffies to Duchesses, whatever, right? There's so many buffs you have to contend with. This game becomes so much easier, especially in Doom Tower, if you just don't have to worry about the buffs. There's not that many champions inside the game that have the block buffs debuff, but I've always kept my eye out, or I shouldn't say always. The last 6 months, I've kept my eye out for the block debuffs champions. Let me share a few of my faves, starting with Phoenix. So Phoenix, or Phoenix, however you say his name, you guys seem to be split in the comments. I feel like I butcher every name, according to some people. They need a pronunciation guide. Raid Shadow Legends, Plarium, come on, what are you doing?
No, actually, it's not me. It is you.
Phoenix has a very hard-hitting A1. I love this champion just because of his A1, and his A3 has decreased speed and decreased defense. Fantastic on a single target, good for bosses. But his A2, it's a very strong AoE attack on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. He has an 80% chance, 85 with the sniper mastery, of getting a block buffs on all enemies for 2 turns. And then he also has a nice block active skills for 1 turn as well, if you don't place that block buffs debuff. So I'm a big fan of Phoenix for various reasons, but one of them is he is one of the only champions in the game with an AoE block buffs that lands at a dependable rate. Now, speaking of you know, OP champions, this is one of my faves, man. Lady Kimmy, man, she's the real deal. She is like the queen. First of all, she's so fast, 115 speed, but she's the queen of having all kinds of important and kind of rare buffs, like an AoE decreased accuracy, AoE decreased speed, decreased turn meter on the same skill. And she also has, right here on her A3 on a 4-turn cooldown, she removes a buff, and then she blocks buff on top of that. Man, Lady Kimmy is fantastic. I know what you're saying, Ash. Yeah, that's great. She's an OP legendary. She's tough to get. I get you. I have a rare for you guys. My man Veteran is not bad. Again, used to be mainly, and still is kind of mainly for faction wars, but he's not a bad champion. His defense base, he has solid defense, solid speed, not awful, not amazing. But look at his A3 here. Attacks all enemies, and again, a 60%, 65 with sniper, of placing block buffs for 1 turn, and damage increases according to this champion's max HP. Sure, it's not as good as the other skills, but the Massacre does deal a decent amount of damage, and you get block buffs for a turn as well, and that's on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, so not too bad, right? You know, because of the fact that it is. I could go on, there's a couple more. I'll give one more for you guys, and it is Umbral Enchantress. People forget that she has this A2 that has block buffs, and that's 100% chance at a 3-turn cooldown. The only problem is she's locking herself out with this A3 from the A2. So, if you want to use the A2, it's still an incredible ability. And this, guys, I want to draw your attention to this. She's very unique. She's the only champion in the game, I want to say, that has block buffs essentially all the time. If you don't use her A3, right, which is a great ability, don't get me wrong, but if you want to use her in dungeons, you're sick of dealing with the pesky buffs, you just build her so she's faster than the enemies, and then she'll always have block buffs up because it's for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. 100% land rate, no weak affinity. She's void. Umbral Enchantress. She's amazing. All right, number 2 thing that people make mistakes about. Everybody's like, dude, is it gonna be 5 minutes per mistake? Good God, Ash. This guy really does ramble a lot. Mistake number 2. This is gonna be kind of an obvious one, but bear with me, bear with me. I'm going somewhere here. Speed. So listen, I always knew speed was important in this game, right? It feels like the higher the content, the speed threshold that you need on your champions, it scales really quickly. And I find that not just with myself, not just with my main account, with my free-to-play account, and a lot of my viewers, and a lot of account takeovers and stuff that I see that people are not properly valuing speed as substats on artifacts. What do I mean by that? So I was at artifact capacity here. I was at 1,000 artifacts, right, for a while. And then I went through my artifacts. This is a great way to free up some room too, right? I went through my artifacts. You guys can all make the decisions on, you know, if you're depending on where you are in the game, you might be keeping 4-star gear, you might be trashing 5-star gear. It depends, right? But I am looking for speed substats. Let me move myself over for a second here. I'm looking for speed substats, guys. And if I don't have it, I'm at the point where I'm pretty much selling it, you know? Like this shield, it looks great, but it doesn't have any speed on it. It doesn't look great, so whatever. But, you know, crit rate, crit damage, HP on a weapon, you know, I think for most people, you probably keep this, but I am at the point where if I don't have speed and another good stat that I'm looking for, just to make room. This is for people out there, by the way, who are already at the point where you have capacity at artifacts, or you're close to, right? It's important for everybody, no matter where you are in the game, to always be kind of raising, you know, month after month, week after week, or whatever, raising that threshold in terms of the quality of artifacts that you keep versus sell, because you have to scale. You have to scale as you farm more artifacts. So like speed and attack, again, I'm looking for crit rate, crit damage. I guess I'll keep this one because it does have the speed and the attack. I'm always going to be putting crit damage gear on an attacker. Crit rate with no speed, I don't want it, you know? So again, this is just me. So, you know, you have to make the decisions on where you are in terms of progression. I'm obviously end game on this account, so I'm selling a lot of gear. But for me, that threshold is incredibly high on gear that I'll keep anymore. Because have you ever gone to like equip a champion and saw like 20 artifacts and you're like, why did I keep this? I need speed. And if you haven't, you probably don't value speed enough, right? So we've come full circle, guys. Speed is incredibly important. In unpopular artifact sets, personally, my threshold is even higher, you know, on a Fury set that I barely use, you know? I want more than this, you know? So baby, keep it to yourself. I don't wanna know. Obviously, it's going to depend on the set in terms of the stats that you're looking for, but for me, I'm looking for a lot of speed. At this point in the game, it's going to be a really either niche or very good artifact for me to keep it if it doesn't have speed on it, because I need speed, especially in the top row, right? Where, you know, these artifacts are easier to come by, this top row, my weapon, my helmet, my shield. I want speed on almost all those artifacts on almost all my champions. Again, there are some exceptions, and everybody, I want to stress this, everybody knows what's best for you at your point in the game in terms of artifacts you're keeping versus trashing, but value speed. You're going to need it. You're going to need speed. You're going to need speed gear. What good use is a champion that's really strong if they're going, you know, very slow? You know, you want your best champions to go faster, ideally, right? Now, there is speed tuning and everything like that, but again, speed, people think they value it, but they still, in my experience, undervalue it. All right, next one, tip number 3 is a simple one. But again, people don't do it. I saw so many comments when I did a video recently on my priorities in the game. And, you know, spoiler alert, I'll save you guys a time of watching that video. I focus on just Doom Tower bosses, faction wars, and clan boss are the main things that I do every day inside this game, okay? And Doom Tower bosses is something that I've really recognized that I just don't value enough, right? Meaning, spending the hour or whatever it's gonna be to use all my silver keys to farm for the forge. And again, that leads me to the mistake, to the undervalued item here, the forge, man. People realize and recognize intuitively that the forge is important. However, I don't feel like people truly recognize how important it is to prioritize Doom Tower farming, right? Farm your Doom Tower bosses, because that's going to give you access to literally some of, if not the best artifacts in the game. And you don't have to use your energy to get them. You don't have to use your energy to get artifacts from the forge.
Actually, that one's really good. Shit, I may use that.
Use your energy for, potions, and then instead for a day, farm Doom Tower bosses. Seriously, I know this game is like a full-time job, and I know, half of you are rolling your eyes and saying, dude, as if I have time to sit there for 2 hours. Try to do it at night here and there, even this, for example, is a great swift parry. I probably keep it because it's swift parry, but I'm looking for speed. At least I have some accuracy and HP. But anyway, guys, so yeah, make sure you're valuing the forge and prioritizing, similar to Faction Wars, you're prioritizing your Doom Tower boss battles. That way you can get access to all of this sick gear. It's really like regular artifact sets, only kicked up a notch, no matter what, set you're looking at as it pertains to Doom Tower. So identify the set that you want to go for, or spread it out day after day, and really try to prioritize those Doom Tower bosses, guys. You get the keys, you're not using any energy, might as well use them, right? All right, number 4 is going to be the other thing that I kind of alluded to, the other kind of stat, but it's not a stat, and that is buff extenders, man. There's only a few champions in the game, guys, that have a cooldown matching how long their buffs last. Like, one of my favorites personally is Iron Brago, right? So he has a very rare ability that adds increased defense for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Most champions don't have that, right? So, let's look at another buffer here. Let's look at like Lady Kimmy, for example. We have let's look at her buffs right here on the A3. So she has an increased accuracy, increased speed for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, right? We love to have that on for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. When you add a buff extender to your team, not just the Lady Kimmy's, not just, one buff, but every buff on your champions, and another buff that is so incredibly valuable when you're able to parlay it with a buff extender is, I'm just going to show you Duchess, but there's a lot of champions in the game that have block debuffs, right? So where the heck are you, Duchess? So Duchess, for example, right? When you pair her with a champion, like I'm going to go over a few of them for you guys right now. But if you can get block debuffs and you can get it for 3 turns, that's a game changer. And all you have to do is put a buff extender on your team with a bunch of good buffers, right? I think a lot of people just don't realize how important a buff extender can be, in terms of your overall survivability of your team, right? So let me give you a few examples here. Now, buff extenders are even more rare than block buffs debuff. There's only a handful of them inside the game. So let me show you some of them right now. Hopefully you guys have access to at least one of these champions. Krisk being, the best and the most rare, being a Void Legendary champion. But he has this ability that has continuous heals on himself, ally protect on all allies, an AoE attack, and increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. So on every 3 turns, you're extending every buff. In a way, you're almost, reducing the cooldown of those buff skills on those other champions. Not really, but you guys get my point. It's very valuable and, in my opinion, very, very underrated. Let me show you a couple legendaries that have them. Again, there's probably only like 5 champions in the game that have this at a high percentage. Look at this, Lanicus the Chosen. People know she's an ally attack, an ally attack champion. Not a lot of those either in the game, and I love that ability as well. However, fills a turn meter of allies by 30% and increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn built into the ally attack. Lanicus the Chosen, that's a sneaky add-on to already an incredible ability. Now let me show you a couple epics here, guys. So we have, can anybody name them before I get to them? How good is your raid knowledge? Godseeker Iniri, guys, a new champion. She has decreased the duration of buffs on enemies by 1 and increases the duration of buffs on allies by 1, again, on a 3-turn cooldown. Very, very good there. And then we have Sandlash Survivor as well. Sandlash Survivor, very, very good because of her aura, because of all of her skills that she brings to the table. And where is she? And right in front of my face somewhere. Why can't, okay, there she is. I'm like, why can't I find you? So she has Endless Sands. An AoE attack decreases the duration of all enemy buffs and increases the duration of ally buffs. Same thing as Godseeker and Eerie on this ability. Very, very valuable, especially for clan boss. She's a great clan boss champion because of her passive, because of having the, not the provoke. Where's the, okay, ally protect and the block damage on herself on the passive as well. And of course that aura, defense in all battles by 25%. There is, check this out, guys. There's a rare champion that does this. Only one, but I will show you it. Only one that does it at a high percentage. She is Bannerlord Valerie. Where are you, Valerie? So Valerie, I think we know her for her shield, right? She has a shield right here on her A3 Protect. 5-turn cooldown, but whatever. It's a rare shield.
That's when I thought I was out. They pulled me back in.
But she has Energizing Presence. 3-turn cooldown, increase the duration of all buffs on all allies by 1 turn. Also decrease the duration of buffs on debuffs by 1 turn as well, with the increased attack. This ability, Energizing Presence, really makes Valerie a kind of a sleeper pick in the rare category. Is she endgame viable? Is she game-changing? Probably not, but you could do a lot worse. This ability, Energizing Presence, plus the shield, she's bringing enough to the table where I think some people could use her even at level 50. You can use her at level 50 with this ability. Try to throw one rare book into her, and maybe you have dupes of Valerie, right? Try to get this down to a 3-turn cooldown, you're good to go. So very, very good, you know, rare champion to consider if you just want a buff extender on your team and have a little mini cleanse in there as well. The last thing, guys, I just made 2 videos about this. The last mistake is going to be not utilizing unpopular artifact sets. And you guys know I'm pretty passionate about this. I love going for reflex gear, right? I have a whole video on best champions for reflex gear where I spotlight a ton of them and I show you them in action. But suffice it to say, let me just look at, you know, my fave, I think, in reflex is Bad Alcazar, right? And I have him built out in reflex right now. 40% chance to reduce the random skill cooldown. That is so good on champions, either with long skill cooldowns or only one skill that's on cooldown, right? And now with the AI customizer, reflex is even better than ever because we can shut off abilities. Let's just say with Ninja, we didn't want him to do his A3. We didn't need the freeze. We didn't need the crowd control, even though that would be stupid to do, but just bear with me here. I'm trying to make a point, right? Let's just say we wanted him to just keep pumping out more hail burns to get more damage on bosses, right? We could shut off the Scion Slash, the A3, and then we could put him in reflex gear, and he would be having, you know, a 40% chance every turn to reduce the cooldown of Hailburn and do it even more often. It's great to use on champions, and now with the AI customizer, it's even better because you can essentially make these champions be only a 1-skill cooldown champion, right? Where previously we were only going after champions like Bad Alcazar, like, for example, I guess Valkyrie, right? Champions that only have 2 active skills. They're A1 and then 1 skill on cooldown. So getting the, you know, getting the value there. Also, I just released a video, what, yesterday, 2 days ago, on the retaliation set, right? How strong retaliation is. You pair retaliation artifacts with a champion that has a great AoE attack on their A1. For example, a champion like Soulbound Boyer, right? You put her in retaliation, you get a 35% chance every single time she's hit either a single target or an AoE attack. You get a 35% chance to counterattack with an AoE attack. So you're hitting the opponents, you know, all the time on top of your regular turns. So looking into, again, just to kind of package this together, the last mistake or undervalued, I should say, overlooked or undervalued thing in the game that I found is just utilizing, looking at other artifact sets, even building like a high resist team. A, it's really fun to think a little bit outside the box and get use out of these artifact sets. And B, it's effective in a lot of ways that don't like necessarily correlate to the meta at all times. That doesn't mean you can't find a lot of use in these artifact sets. So guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this video here. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching all the way till the end. And as always, take care, guys.